Welcome to EWTN News live coverage of Pope Francis in the United States. I'm Raymond Arroyo. We take you now live to Joint Base Andrews for the Holy Father's departure from the Washington D.C. area to New York City. Look at this video. Here's the first video. The Holy Father about to take his flight to New York. This is EWTN News Live, continuing coverage of Pope Francis in America. If you'd like to tweet us, I'm at Raymond Arroyo, or you can send us questions at papalvisit@EWTN.com. Delighted you're joining us. Our next event will be Pope Francis, a Vespers ceremony from St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York. We hope you'll join us for that a little later this afternoon. And boy, are we looking forward to that. And we'll be joining you from New York for that coverage.
And this is EWTN picking up Raymond's coverage from our location at the World Media Families. I'm with Janet Bankovic. And Raymond and his wonderful team is on their way to New York so they can cover all those wonderful events when the Holy Father arrives, as well as the Vespers tonight at St. Patrick's Cathedral. And we're happy to be with you, Janet Bankovic and Doug Keck, who've been here all week long with the World Media Families. And as you can see, we're at St. Andrews Air Force Base. They're expected about 1,500 spectators and about 450 children from the Diocese of Maryland and Delaware. And these are Catholic school students, and that's where the bleachers will include primarily military families. We'll be seeing right now, we're getting video, obviously you see the Holy Father arriving. We see the American Airlines 777 Boeing aircraft, which will whisk the Holy Father and his group to New York's JFK for arrival around 5 p.m. or so. It's not that long of a flight, obviously, to get up there. And again, we see him pulling onto the tarmac there. You can see some tighter shots of the Holy Father in the car. And the highest level official we believe that will be there will be our Secretary of State, John Kerry, who will be acting as the main representative of the United States government. In addition, we believe there will also be the Secretary of the Air Force, Deborah James, and the Joint Base Andrews Wing Commander, Colonel Brad Hoagland, will also be here as part of the group sending the Holy Father off to his next series of events in New York. So, Jeanette, what are your thoughts watching the Holy Father here as he moves on to New York?
Well, I can only imagine the excitement that's waiting for him in New York, much as he's received everywhere that he's been, both in Cuba and here in the United States. And as we continue to make preparation for his arrival here in Philadelphia, we can see from our vantage point that already the anticipation, the excitement is mounting. We've got lots of security in place already here in the city of Philadelphia.
Right, exactly. In fact, we have the steel barriers are up. We know for a fact that as of 5 o'clock tomorrow here, they basically start locking down the box.
Yes.
Because again, as much as he's flying up to New York here late on Thursday, he is going to basically be in Philadelphia on Saturday for a couple of events people can look forward to, which will be the Festival of Families that Saturday night, as well as the Papal Mass on Sunday. And again, as you're watching, you see the Holy Father there with John Kerry, Secretary of State, on his right. And as Cardinal Wuerl on the left just reached out and was seen. Looks like he was thanking some of the painful entourage. And again, you see Secretary of State John Kerry to the right of the Holy Father. And again, this is coming to you live via EWTN from the Joint Base Andrews Air Force Base, where the Holy Father will be boarding the American Airlines 777 momentarily. Again, there's no official event set up for here. This is basically a departure. He's got a busy schedule, so they're doing quite a good job, I would think, Jeanette, as well, not only the great job our team has done covering him, but he's stayed on schedule pretty much, it seems to be, from what we could tell, in between covering the World Meeting of Families.
Yes, it's very true. And he looked very rested today, I thought. He seemed to be in good form, and he's had an incredibly busy schedule. You think of a man of his age being able to maintain that kind of endurance, and he's done it so very well, even with the effects of a troubling sciatica. But he's made his way through. And I think that speaks not only to his stamina, but I think it speaks to the grace that comes when God presses you into action in these ways, something that we can all take note of and apply to our own lives and look for when we have those trials of endurance. There's a constant teaching message that comes forth from the Vicar of Christ on earth.
Right, exactly. And as we see the Holy Father just about ready to ascend the steps, we think of some of the comments he made earlier today when he spoke to Congress, and he talked about Philadelphia. I will end my visit to your country in Philadelphia, where I will take part in the World Meeting of Families. That's right here in Philly. It is my wish that throughout my visit, the family should be a recurrent theme. How essential the family has been to the building of this country, and how worthy it remains of our support and encouragement. Yet, I cannot hide my concern for the family, which is threatened, perhaps as never before, from within and without. Fundamental relationships are being called into question, as is the very basis of marriage and the family. I can only reiterate the importance and, above all, the richness and beauty of family life. And he really has been very, very strong in talking about this trip being all about the family, and society as a family as well.
Yes, and really a clarion call to the family and to the individuals who populate a family. Some of the messages that were very dear to my heart came at the very beginning, where he talks about each son or daughter of a given country has a mission. And this is a message that particularly resonates within me, a personal and social responsibility. Your own responsibility as members of Congress is to enable this country by your legislative action to grow as a nation. And in a sense there, he's calling upon the country to revision itself as a family, where each one of us has a duty and a responsibility.
Exactly. We can see the Holy Father has ascended the stairs and has basically waved his final farewell wave to the people of Washington, D.C., gathered on the tarmac there at Andrews Air Force Base, and the Holy Father greeting the crew, and he is now moving inside. We can see him as he moves inside, and so pretty soon we will be seeing liftoff of actually the jet as he wings his way to New York, and our crackerjack papal team of Raymond Arroyo and of course Robert Royal, joined by Father Jerry Murray, who is from New York himself, and I know we'll also be seeing I'm sure Bill Donahue as well from the Catholic League. They had a great team in Washington, and we'll have a great team covering everything in New York as well, as you can see. So everybody should look forward to that. We've got a great event coming up tonight with Vespers at St. Pat's, where our coverage will begin about 6:15 p.m. with the same team. We're just filling in, folks. We're just here because our team can't bilocate. They've got to move in between. Yesterday was Padre Pio's day, but the rest of us didn't have that ability that he had. So we're just filling in here from the World Meeting of Families and bridging the gap as our team heads up to New York to get all set up to give our Holy Father a wonderful and warm, friendly welcome to the Big Apple, my home, great New York, coming in at JFK Airport. And again, this is EWTN's live coverage of the departure from Washington of the Holy Father.
You can see that the crowds behind us are filing out of the keynote talk from this afternoon. And again, from our vantage point here, anticipation is certainly mounting as we draw nearer to the Holy Father's arrival here in the city of brotherly love.
Exactly. And tonight he will be doing Vespers at St. Pat's. Will actually be with clergy, men and women religious. And one of the things I would say while we're watching the honor guard, there's the bleachers filled with military personnel, as well as the Catholic school kids who are there as well. How much and how inspiring it's been to see all the religious here at the World Meeting of Families, and to see how important they are, and how exuberant in the life and the revitalization in many cases of those religious groups?
Well, you know, as we watch these beautiful religious men and women come through the Pennsylvania Convention Center here, we are very well aware of the fact of the witness that they make to all of us, but also to the youth. And I think it would be quite impressive to find out how many young people have been inspired by this event to at least consider religious life as a vocation. And I can only imagine that the numbers are great. We had the privilege of being with some of the religious, and to see the joy on their faces certainly is an incredible witness to the life of Jesus Christ in us, among us, and the great work that goes on through these religious men and women.
Exactly. And again, we're here covering the departure of the Holy Father. He has boarded the jet, the American Airlines jet, which will wing him to New York. There you can see it as we come up in the background, though he's already on there. And that you can see the actual tarmac. You saw the bleachers that were set up there. And we have just moments, we would expect, before he would they would pull that away. And he will take his departure of Washington, D.C. You know, one of the other comments that I was thinking about in looking at and listening to the talk as he gave Congress while Raymond and the team were covering him earlier today was he talked about, you know, us being a nation of immigrants. Yes. And he talked about we, the people of this continent, are not fearful of foreigners because most of us were once foreigners. I say this to you as the son of immigrants, which of course he was in Argentina, knowing that so many of you are descended from immigrants. Tragically, the rights of those who were here long ago were not always respected. For those people in the nations, for the heart of American democracy, I wish to reaffirm my highest esteem and appreciation. Those first contacts were often turbulent and violent, but it's difficult, and I thought this was really important because we talk about them, we acknowledge the past, but it's difficult to judge the past by the criteria of the present. And that, I think, is something that's very, very important for all of us to think about many times when we're talking about things that have happened in history, things that have happened in the past, where we tend to want to impose our value system of today on what people were doing 200 years ago.
I think that that's a very important cautionary word, and I couldn't agree with you more. And the unfortunate reality is that many of those ideas that we've had that have come to us because of the progress of society in so many ways, that are thrust back on prior times, on the historic record, have made their ways into our children's textbooks. And so there's been a type of, I think, undermining of the great tradition that this nation holds and that many nations hold, and the presence of the church in so many geographic areas at the start of nations and the start of countries. And we must always be aware of the fact that there will be a future generation looking back on us and making statement and appraisal based on how the world is at that time. So this is almost a type of charity that he's invoking upon us, a charitable glance back as opposed to a judgmental glance back.
Right, exactly. And I think to some degree a meditation on thinking in terms of here are some ideas to think about. Think about them in terms of what you're doing and how you might be able to live this out better. Like you said, without getting into, just like you said many times with other people, if somebody's trying to do the right thing and moving forward, let's focus on that positive step and have that mercy and encourage them to do the right thing.
Well, life is a journey, and the progress of civilization is a journey. And we've always got to provide that next step and be an encourager toward that next step.
Exactly. And again, we can see that the crowd is basically there waiting for him to take off. The Holy Father is already on board. And again, we're just waiting to see if we can see him actually lift off because he's going to head to New York for the Vesper service. He's going to JFK. And he's supposed to depart in about 5 minutes or so, actually. It looks like that's what I'm being informed about. And of course, one of the things we can look forward to is our team there. There's a whole series of events happening on Saturday as well in New York, which we'll be covering here on EWTN by our crack papal team. Raymond Arroyo and his team will be ensconced in New York City on location, covering those events happening starting tonight and running through Saturday, including an event at Madison Square Garden, actually a mass at Madison Square Garden, a place that I actually worked at one time and worked on, so it's near and dear to my heart, and it's great to see a location like that be used for such a wonderful event as a mass by the Holy Father.
Absolutely. You know, as you were talking a little while ago about the reality of this glance back and that cautionary word that the Holy Father gives us, he said something else that I thought was very good, very instructive, very much in keeping with Church's social teaching, and reminded me very much of St. John Paul II. He said that building a future of freedom requires love of the common good, a love of the common good, and a cooperation in a spirit of subsidiarity and solidarity. And I thought that that was very good. Subsidiarity, of course, is a principle of the Church that says that problems ought to be handled at the closest level, right? That it needs to be handled by the local agent as opposed to the governmental agent. This was very close to the heart of John Paul II. And solidarity, standing in union with the disenfranchised, standing in union with the marginalized, standing in union with those that are beleaguered. And we think about that beautiful word in the context of what John Paul II did with regard to Poland, his own country. That word was a big word, solidarity, right? To unite as brothers and sisters in Christ for that common good of which we must have not a fondness, but a love, a sacrificial kind of attitude of heart.
Well, we had a chance in between our coverage of the World Meeting of Families here to dip in and watch some of our dynamite coverage. And I know one of the points that Rob Royal made in covering this earlier today with Raymond and the team was talking about the fact that the Holy Father at times uses some technical terms like subsidiarity. In other words, that you really have to have a good understanding to understand what he's talking about. But like you said, that whole idea, people see the Church many times as a monolith, as everything emanating from one giant location, and that everybody, the priests and the bishops, are merely functionaries of the Pope, as opposed to, actually the ordinary being the person in charge of his local diocese and things being done locally. And as we can see, there's some images from earlier today when we were talking about when the Holy Father was addressing Congress, and then he went to see the statue that is there in Statuary Hall of Junipero Serra, who of course he canonized earlier yesterday, and a wonderful ceremony from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. And there again, we're getting to see some images for those of you who didn't join us earlier. That's when the Holy Father came out from Congress and actually spoke briefly to the people amassed out there, as you can see, towards the reflecting pool and down towards the Washington Monument.
Yes.
One thing we did notice too, I'm sorry, Jeanette, was the fact that, and commented on, and I think we mentioned it earlier while watching the coverage, is he does seem to get his energy from the people.
Yes,
that
indeed.
when he is out and about and amongst the people, he certainly seems to re-energize himself.
Yes. Well, I think that that's his spiritual paternity. You know, that's the heart of a father among his children, and he seems to give of himself to the crowd, and the crowd certainly seems to give of itself to him. That in and of itself, I think, bolsters him up and gives him what he needs to go forward to the next event.
And again, this is EWTN's live coverage of the departure of the Holy Father from Andrews Air Force Base heading to JFK in New York. He will be departing momentarily. You can say the entryway has been pulled away, and so the vehicles are still out there, but we expect them to be lifting off momentarily. And let's not forget that we still got much more of the World Meeting of Families. Tomorrow, there's more events happening here, and certainly as we finish things off at the convention of the World Meeting of Families, it still extends basically Saturday and Sunday. And let's talk a little bit about, while we're waiting for the Holy Father to take off, that on the Festival of Families will be happening here in Philadelphia Saturday night, and there's tickets have been given away for that, and there's also the Papal Mass then that will be happening on Sunday as well. So there's two big events, and they're all happening fairly close to one another between here, this location, and those two events. And in fact, where we are today will be taken over as the anchor position by our papal team of Raymond Arroyo and Rob Royal. They'll be here with other commentators right here in Philadelphia and taking over as of Saturdays. Again, we can see some images also coming up of the papal plane, the flag flying from the United States, as well as the Vatican flag there. The pilots, I'm assuming American airline pilots, who are flying this special mission to take the Holy Father to JFK in New York on a Boeing 777.
Looks as though they're going through their final checks there. We can see into the cockpit a little bit. Getting themselves prepared, getting themselves ready. I know that so many who have been watching this consistent coverage through EWTN, Doug, so appreciate the fact that we have this ability to be able to show.
Exactly, and I think one of the nice things I think we've heard from people that's been very edifying and nice for us to hear is that how much they've appreciated our ability to stay on top of the Pope, to cover him from the point in Cuba, not to feel as if they're missing out on any of that, but at the same time being able to participate, at least to some degree, in the World Meeting of Families and how all of it fits together, and it's fit together well, and we hope all our audience out there appreciates the efforts of the people working at EWTN to make it all happen. And we certainly appreciate the support of prayers and donations that allow us to do things like this and to bring this kind of coverage of a papal visit, let alone simultaneous coverage of an unbelievable event like the World Meeting of Families with 15,000 plus people from 100 plus countries.
Yes. Well, the beauty and the benefit is that for many, there's no better place to be but at home to watch this because you get the coverage of both places. And as you had said earlier, you can't be in two places at one time, you know? So with EWTN, who is everywhere, there's this opportunity to be able to broadcast this from two locations and not miss anything.
Right, exactly.
You know, be a front row spectator.
And on top of it, of course, we always encourage people to check out our EWTN app so you can follow us, you know, with your iPhone or your Android phone or on your tablet and be able to follow us on the go. Very, very popular app we have, of course, and you can follow us in all other different ways on Facebook and Twitter, of course. And of course, you can also follow us just from different ways with radio. We've had radio coverage certainly here from the World Meeting of Families, as well as carrying our coverage of the papal visit. So radio is another way, whether it's streaming or actually on a radio. People actually listen to the radio sometimes on a radio.
Yes,
not as much as they used to, but certainly in a car and driving around and stuff. And again, we're watching EWTN's live coverage. That's Andrews Air Force Base. That is the American Boeing 777. Our Holy Father is on board, so we're just waiting momentarily for him to take off and head to New York City and to land at JFK in about, well, let's see, it's about 45 minutes or so, 50 minutes. That's the estimated time. Of course, I'm sure that the airways have been cleared. And there won't be a lot of traffic blocking him. He's not going to be circling JFK Airport. And of course, one of the things too is not only do we have these events happening, Jeanette, but very shortly in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about the Synod.
Yes.
The Synod of the Family. There's so much of the family all together here with what our Holy Father's talking about the family, the World Meeting of Family here, and also the Synod happening in Rome starting October 4th and 5th. We'll be bringing, I know, daily updates as well as a half-an-hour review show, at least Monday through Friday on the days that the Synod is in session for the 3-week period that it will exist. So people can look forward to that. You can count on EWTN as you always have, and you can count on us in Spanish, English, and in German. And so we'll be covering all of that as well.
It's interesting that the timing and the preparation that's gone into this and the focus that has been riveted on the family from the preliminary synod now to the World Meeting of Families on to the synod that's going to be happening in October reminds us, I think, that from the perspective of Pope Francis, there isn't anything more important than the family at this time.
Exactly. And as we see, the jet has begun to move to taxi out to take off from Andrews and head for JFK. And as we see our Holy Father pull away, we will probably leave it at that to give everybody a little rest before we continue our coverage, as the Holy Father will arrive up in JFK in about 45 minutes or so. And people should stay tuned to EWTN for complete coverage. Hopefully we'll be hearing from our New York papal team on the arrival. But one way or the other, we will be here bringing you the the images of the Holy Father's arrival, and then obviously Vespers at St. Pat's. And someone reminded me at the newly refurbished St. Pat's, and I'm sure Cardinal Dolan will be very proud to show that off to the Holy Father. So this is Doug Keck along with John Benkovic. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to join us for the World Meeting of Families tomorrow as well. Stay tuned for our events in New York City and for our continuing coverage of the World Meeting of Families, coming to you as we are from the Convention Center in Pennsylvania. Thank you very much.